events both inside and outside Queen's Park today ahead of the throne speech, outlining the key priorities of Premier Doug Ford's newly elected Conservative government. The speech was read by Lieutenant Governor Elizabeth Dowdeswell. Among the key points, a promise to reduce gas prices and hydro bills, scrapping Ontario's cap-and-trade program, expanding the sale of beer and wine to include corner stores, grocery stores, and even big box stores, extra funding for long-term care beds and mental health care services, plus significant education changes, including repealing the sex ed curriculum introduced by the previous Liberal government and scrapping so-called discovery math lessons.
You can also count on your government to respect parents, teachers and students by getting back to basics and replacing failed ideological experiments in the classroom with tried and true methods that work. It will include scrapping the failed experimental discovery math curricula and focus on the fundamentals that allow our children to succeed.
Okay, so school just let out, but the new school year is just a few weeks away. And when school starts again this fall, your kids are going to have a dramatically different learning experience. First off, many needed repairs simply won't be happening. Those budgets have been scrapped. And when it comes to the curriculum, well, it's a whole new way of doing the 1, 2, 3s.
One of the things I was hoping to hear that I did hear was that Ontario has everything it needs to succeed. And that includes we have the finances to fund schools and students properly. The details are that we're going to return the curriculum back to the 1990s in two key areas, mathematics and sex education.
Discovery math is a different way of teaching math. It isn't so much practicing the multiplication tables and learning fraction and addition like we did, but rather focusing on creative problem solving. While the government invested $60 million in this new type of math programming, Ontario students' math scores actually declined or just remained stable, while other provinces saw improvements. But this isn't the only calculated change to the curriculum. The controversial sex ed program is being pulled and temporarily reversing to the one from 1998, before social media, sexting, or the Me Too movement came to be. A hot-button election issue, and many parents rallied against the new curriculum, but not everybody is happy with the change.
We need curriculum which acknowledges and supports the diversity of real people. In Ontario, you cannot have curriculum in 2018 which doesn't address the role of the internet and sexting, gender identity, that there are trans parents and young people in the school system. There are gay and lesbian students and parents in same-sex families. We have to face reality. Unfortunately, by repealing the curriculum and going back to 1998 while they conduct more consultations is a waste of money, and it's also just not in touch with the fact that there was real consultation. I think Doug Ford doesn't understand real consultation.
Throughout the show, we've been bringing you some of the major points from Doug Ford's first throne speech delivered here at Queen's Park this afternoon. And the speech outlined some of the main priorities for this government. And one of those priorities is greater support for police.
You can count on your government to respect the men and women of Ontario's police services by freeing them from onerous restrictions that treat those in uniform as subjects of suspicion and scorn, ensuring they have the tools, support, and resources they need to enforce the law and protect innocent families from the menace of drug, gun, and gang-related violence.
Policing, as we've been talking about for the last number of years, has been a job that's been demonized, and I think that what I heard from that throne speech is that, you know, it respects the people who work very hard in this province to keep the province and the city safe.
And I'm joined now with Nia Singh. He's a Toronto mayoral candidate. You've read the speech, you've heard the remarks. What do you think this means when it comes to more powers for police?
It seems like Premier Ford is alluding to the carding regulations, and even though carding is illegal, it seems like he wants to remove restrictions. There are no restrictions on police officers. We have a fine police force. They have to do their job, but they should not be breaking the law. So we can't have officers break the law to enforce the law.
Do you think that he's confusing the issue? I mean, carding and gang violence, are they linked?
They are not linked at all. When carding was at its height in 2005, there was the summer of the gun. So arbitrary detention of innocent people does not stop gun violence. What stops gun violence is resources into the community to ensure that young people don't go down the wrong path. So I'd like to hear Premier Ford talk about how we're going to prevent crime, prevent gun violence, instead of just address it with the remedy. We need the cure, not just the remedy.
So what do you think, what sort of steps should the Premier be taking?
He should be looking at how frontline officers interact with the community so there can be more positive interactions and cooperation with the community. As long as officers and the community have a divisive relationship, there will be no information flowing. So pouring money into making sure that kids stay in school, that young people have jobs, that will help alleviate all the pressures that young people feel and when they deter themselves and find themselves in a life of crime.
Do you think that Ford is sort of just going for the populist message here, just saying, we're going to crack down on crime and, rights schmites, I guess? It's
an age-old political ploy, and we've seen that with Trump, and I hope Doug Ford does not follow this, because divisiveness and hate is not the way to rule a province. It's not the way for the City of Toronto to heal. What we need is support, and we need support from our higher-ups, which is Premier Ford. He has to set an example. Mayor Tory and the Chief have already spoke about things that they're going to do to combat this, and one of them was making sure that resources go into the community to prevent these things. So we need to hear that same messaging from Doug Ford. We don't want his remarks to embolden officers that break the law to continue to break the law, because even though carding regulations have been put in place, the practice still continues. So we still have a lot of frontline work to do to make sure communities and police work together. We need everyone on the same side. Thank you so much for your time, Nia. And that was Nia Singh. He's a Toronto mayoral candidate. And back to you.